to those pet projects to be balanced.
The best grants, we're seeing some cuts in the best grant dollars that are available, for example. So, you know, Peter.
They're nickel and
Hey,
dimes
Paul.
in the big picture. Yeah. But protecting these other big tickets, that's what he's doing.
Absenteeism and another trend we're seeing is how do we tackle absenteeism? We don't really see that in D38, but some other school districts are seeing that. Large declining enrollments in some other school districts, that's an issue that we're not seeing like that in other school districts are. Things like there's a couple bills on restraint and isolation of a student who's having problems in the classroom, and how do they tackle that behavioral issues. So there's some bills on that as well. Two bills, one seems like a good bill, the other one seems like a really bad bill. We're seeing a lot of freshman lawmakers that will put together bills that are already actually law. So we're seeing a lot of that as well as they're learning. A lot of freshman lawmakers don't understand school finance formula in Colorado or school funding in Colorado. So they're drinking from a fire hose and learning. And so it makes us twitchy. That's my new word of the day, twitchy. Okay, let's go ahead and move on unless there's anything else you guys want to lean into on that one. Okay, so number two is B2 is to discuss community engagement regarding our November 2025 school board election. What we have there, I'm going to just share with you guys a couple quick things. This was from last year, but this is a really good handbook that we can use that was put together. It's a resource from CASB. It's the new school board member handbook. I'll just pass that down if you guys want to take a look at it. The last time we often will hold some public engagements on what does running for the Board of Education look like. And we have everything from I think we have our presentation that I and Matt Clausen did last year, but last time we did it in August, and CASB's already done one, so there was a question of perhaps it would be wise. Mr. Norris's seat is up. I am term limited, and so my seat is up. That's Director District 1 and Director District 3. So if we want to do a community engagement to let our community know what are the timelines, what are the expectations. I would hope that Ms. Wood would be present for that too, because she's very versed in this as well. To do just a presentation of what does that look like. So I wanted to throw out some dates, the more board members we have engaging in this, and I think it's also good to have more board members engaged in it, because who's the new board going to be? And you all are going to be on that board working together. So I wanted to open it up for discussion on timeline. Thoughts?
What's the goal?
The goal is to inform our community. There's more than one goal. To inform our community on expectations, what does a board member do, and what are the election requirements. And also, it's a good way to just get out there and do a town hall and be able to meet and greet our community and allow folks who are interested to know what running for school board is like in D38.
Can I throw out maybe another idea on a goal?
Sure.
In the last 5 years, we've, in this community, not had a nice stable of quality candidates running for school board. Not including you, Chris. But we have.
Including me.
Absolutely. The point is we've had a lot run unopposed, including Tiffany and myself. And while it's quite a compliment, it's also not healthy. It's healthy to have a lot of great candidates available. And it's healthy to have people in the community willing to make an investment for the future of all the children in their community, just like we intend to do. So if we can increase the quantity of quality candidates coming up in November, it's very, very good for the future of our kids. I would argue on a numerical basis, one incremental goal to what Ms. Upchurch brought up might be to ultimately end up with at least 2 quality candidates per open seat. Thoughts? Amazon. We generate enough buzz to where we find a few groups of folks that inside of their social circles say, you know what, maybe it's time we dove in and made a contribution beyond what's happening in our little world. Very hard to do when everybody's lives are busy, but I think everybody here will argue it's darn fulfilling. Sometimes it's a pain in the rear, but 8 out of 10, it's very fulfilling, and it makes a quality difference in thousands of people's lives. It's how our country operates. We should contribute. Gordon's a great example. How many things you volunteer for, Gordon? Sorry, that's a good thing. How many things do you volunteer for? 10, 15? No, 6. Okay. But it consumes a third to a half of most of your days, yeah?
I think absolutely we should, I think it's important that we're also being realistic and honest that being on the Board of Education is a commitment and is a time commitment. So I
Very
think
much
that
so.
that's also helpful. Mr. Norse?
Yeah, I think I've brought it up before, and I know it's a little bit of an uphill battle with a lot of community engagement, but perhaps to address the staffing shortage, we consider an at-large district and remove the 5 seats.
I don't believe we can do that.
We'd have
think
to
it-
put, we have to put it on the ballot.
Hence the comment for the community engagement. And I don't know what the pros and cons of that. I think at least one pro is everybody's eligible for any seat. Just a suggestion.
Thoughts?
What's the, how do we do that functionally? We have to,
We
Vote.
don't, yes, it would take, it's a vote to the, you'd have to pay, so if you'll notice on there right now, we have, this is our timeline to do a ballot for the 2 positions. I don't know if that includes, if you did, I have no idea what that referendum would look like, but it would be put on the ballot. We'd have to do a ballot referendum to have the community vote on that to eliminate director districts.
Yeah, I think you'd have to do that in an off-cycle election year, and then there's no board seats up, like we'd have had to do it either last November or November of
Oh,
2026.
I remember that too, actually.
is this apologize for my ignorance here. Is this an all or nothing or binary thing? In other words, all 5 seats are at large or none of them are?
No, I do know that answer is no. I need to look a little bit at statute. Given 5 seats, I know the handling of a 5-seat director district is different than if there had been 7 seats.
Yes, that's if to do a blend like that, you'd have to have a 7-seat board. Then you could do like a four districts and a 3 at large, but you can't do that with a 5-seat board.
Okay.
It's either all representative or all at large in a 5-seat board.
So what might be really interesting to Chris's point is, let's see if we can drive more community involvement for the cycle coming up.
Yeah, not this coming up 2025, but 2026, if that was something that the community would want to engage in.
Well, yeah, or my thought was if we have how many seats available? 2.
2 for this cycle.
Right, so if we can get at least 4 or 6 quality candidates for those 2 seats, then we're getting far more interest than we have in the past. And that would indicate then that there's enough community buzz that we can then see if there's an appetite in the community for wanting representation for either going from 5 to 7 or wanting representation on an at-large basis. Obviously, probably the con side of that would be your densely populated areas are going to control everything. It's probably less impactful in a small community than it would be, for example, in the state. Whenever we do state elections, everybody, when you watch it on the news, they all say, well, we'll wait till the Denver precincts report. Because between Denver and Boulder, you've got like 2/3 of the whole state's population. And so it just drives so many decisions.
Well, right now, if you look at the director districts, the way they're divided out, by statute, that's why we realign our director districts to make sure that they are evenly dispersed per precinct and population. And so, yeah, you can see right there, there's the population numbers per director district at the moment.
Because ultimately, in this geography, Jackson Creek and Woodmore have the density, right?
Theoretically, yes, but if you look at the way the director districts are populated, thank you, they're pretty close to even for all 5 director districts with.
But my point was, if you migrate that to an at-large, then you run that risk.
You might get all of them from District 3 right now.
Exactly my point. So we need to consider that as we pitch that to the community, if we choose to do it.
Very much.
So that's something that you 3 board members and whoever the 2 other board members are can decide for 2026. For 2025, so July 25th is when we have to register with the county. Is that correct, Ms. Wood?
Yes.
And then August 6th is the first day we can do the call and packets can be picked up. So I would propose that we do at least 2 community engagements, one in the spring, ideally either the end of April or into the beginning of May, and then another one either the end of July. I would propose August, even though packets would be picked up, could be potentially picked up, because that's when everybody's coming back from their summer vacations and plans. So if we did something the end of July before August 6th, that would give 2 engagements. But if we want to do more than that, we can certainly do more than that. I would also suggest that we go out to the community. Like maybe we can do it at the town. We've done a town hall at the town hall before, so we could do that. We could do one here in Big Red, and we could do one in town hall in here in Monument or in Palmer Lake. We could do it at the Woodmore Barn. We've done it there before as well.
Would it be worth doing at least one online for people who have a hard time getting?
Yeah, I believe we did. That's a great idea. Yeah. But I'd like to get some dates set, is the main reason I wanted to look at this, and find out when our board is available. Or at least get we can firm up dates, but let's get some consensus on some time frames.
This is likely evenings and maybe a Saturday or Sunday afternoon, conceptually.
Yep. We can also do one, we can go out and do one at the PCAC, if they wouldn't mind.
Yeah, I would suggest engaging our committees, because we have highly engaged community members serving on our PCAC and our FTC committees that may be good candidates moving forward.
So the purpose of doing it with those committees is to get them involved.
I think we can think about that. I would certainly talk with them about the process and invite them to come to any community engagement events that we would host.
Okay.
I wonder if it would be valuable, since I know there are some very vocal members of those committees, and then there are others that are very participatory but not vocal, right? I wonder if it would be valuable for us to ask them to engage those in their networks that are not already involved, that maybe would be a wonderful candidate. And I wonder if maybe we could provide some polite guidance that says, look, a quality candidate needs to have good listening skills. They need to
Not be a felon.
not be away.
A felon.
They need to have time, because
I'm kidding.
Yeah, but some non-obtrusive characteristics that would make it very organic for someone to move into a board role, right? And there would not be surprises. To your point, it likely requires a 5 to 20 hour a month commitment, et cetera, right?
Mr. Clausen used to say it's what you put into it. What I found is it's a full-time job for me in
Yeah,
particular.
absolutely. You take it that way. Conversely, when we had this conversation with Mr. Clausen a couple of years ago, I brought up the same thing, is that I wonder if we should highlight the commitment that makes it successful. And he came back and said, I'd hate to miss a wonderfully insightful corporate executive that just doesn't have that kind of time, but adds so much even when they're here purely for 2 meetings plus 1 incremental session a month. What was his comment? So there's probably a happy medium is my point. But if we provide an opportunity to say, here's a non-exclusive cheat sheet on some of the things that board members might consider in terms of commitments and personality traits or skill sets. Can you take this to your network and see or recommend who might be a quality addition?
Well, and that slide presentation that we did last time has a lot of that in there on what makes being on the board, what does it mean, what does it not mean. And so we could definitely put together a packet that I would ask Ms. Matizik if it would be possible, we could probably put that on our website too, once we get to that point of presentation stage.
For sure. That would be a great way to communicate that to the whole community.
And there's a lot of great resources out there, so we can collate some of those resources. To Mr. Norris's point, since it's Director District 1, it would make sense, yeah, there it is. It would make sense to, is there a way to scroll through it? Just, no, that's,
I think so. I think that'll work.
So if we did a T-minus backwards, back to your point about calendaring things, Tiffany,
I'll do it.
yes, sir.
she has to drive. If we did a T-minus backwards, August 1 is when I think packets have to be submitted to the county, do they not, Vicki?
August,
I have to notify the county by the end of July,
Okay.
and then August 6th is the first date they can pick up nomination packets.
And get signatures through the end of the month or something like that?
26th.
Okay.
packets are due August 26th. Now, is those dates firm now?
Those dates, I believe, yes.
Okay. So, to your point, Ron, I think the first week of August, what date is the first? Yeah, I just wanted to, so you can see when we scroll through it, you can get an idea. So, August 1st is, what's that date? What day of the week is that? That is a Friday, is August 1st. We could do, we could do Monday, the 4th, set that as a date. Or we can,
4th of which month?
of August, as one of our dates. And we could do Friday, August 1st, but I wonder, would people attend? Unless you do it
Wouldn't we want to do it significantly ahead of that?
in July.
Or even in June?
Well, I say we do more, my personal perspective is to do more than one.
For
And
sure.
to Chris's point, we should definitely ask if we can do it at Palmer Lake Town Hall, because that is the main area that represents. So let's connect with Palmer Lake. Woodmore is mine, so definitely the Woodmore Barn would make sense as well. But I 100% agree we should do more. We should do more than one, more than two. How many do we want to do, and how far in advance do we want to start?
I would go a minimum of 60 days.
Starting in June,
Yeah, I mean, and frankly,
was
it's a
thinking
bit, it's a
May.
bit of a family commitment too, right?
100%. Nodding our head, yes.
It's not like our spouses and kids don't get hit up, right?
It is a family commitment.
Yeah, and so therefore, 60 days is a minimum.
You mentioned spring. Do you want to consider something earlier in the spring for candidates who are considering running so that they have some time to
Think about it.
think about the options? Yeah.
I would propose end of April, beginning of May is the first one.
Well, I was just going to say, I mean, of course, people would be welcome to reach out to any of us. I'm sure any of us would be happy to talk to them one-on-one. They don't have to wait for a necessarily community engagement meeting.
So let's aim for, let's throw out some dates to bring back, and I don't mind kicking off the first one if we want to do it either the end of April, beginning of May. Chris, what does yours, because it's your director district too, I think that at least you and I should, unless you have any objections. Okay.
No, Chip, no. I'm good for April and May.
May 1st is a Thursday. Do you want to just kick off the first of May with our first one? All right, our first engagement is the first, okay, we got one on the books.
What time?
Say 6 o'clock?
Oh, I'm busy, dang it. I'm open. 6 PM, where at?
For our first one, we can kick off our first one here, or we can kick it off at either the Woodmore Barn or Palmer Lake, but I would like to, we need to connect with them. We can't just throw out a date and say we're going to show up and find out they're booked up. So let's, since we're firming this up with May 1st, let's do the first one here, and we can live stream it as well. Can we do that, Amy?
We can.
Okay. So the first one will be here, May 1st, 6 PM. We'll live stream it as well. And then from there, let's connect with Palmer Lake and Woodmore and see if we, and possibly the Town of Monument. Ron, you're going to throw a monkey wrench in.
Should we plan on 90 minutes?
Yes. Yeah, I believe we, Vicki, can you tell us, not right now, but when we did the last ones, I cannot remember how long we did our presentations for. But we may be able to do it even quicker than 90 minutes. I think we only needed an hour. I think we did a 30-minute presentation and 30-minute Q&A.
Maybe just for us, we'll sequester 90 minutes to cover Q&A afterwards or
Okay.
offline conversations.
Yep. Okay, so first one on the books, May 1st. And then we will connect with the other municipalities for other dates. And we'll do a total of 4. Does that work? One here, one at Town of Monument, one at Palmer Lake, and one at Woodmore Barn. I know that may be a lot, but
We'd be happy to look at those facilities and see what dates they have available and then bring that information back to you. That'd be great. For the next
because we could
work
do one,
session, and we can discuss.
we could do one once a month. If we do one in May, June, July, or 2 in July.
That's good.
Okay, great, thank you. Next up, my board docs. Is our B policies, right? Yep. Apologize, I'm having technical difficulty. Okay, number 3 is our B policy review. So the reason as we're going through all of our different policies, the reason I wanted to bring this up to our work session is this is a great opportunity for us as board members to engage in what does policy governance look like. And D38's board's governance is our B policies. We don't have board bylaws. We have our B policies. So this is a great exercise. Most of our policies we don't need to look at or change, but this is a great exercise for each of us to take some responsibilities for a series of policies. So grabbing, policies 1 through, numbers 1 through 5. Each of us take on 5 and then look them over go through the exercise of, do they need to be changed, keep the same, eliminated? And so I would like to see each of us take a group of them and then bring them back for discussion at our next work session. And then we would potentially do a first reading in May and a second reading in June is the goal.
And I'll just mention, Ms. Wood has gone ahead and reviewed all of the policies in comparison with CASB and noted here for you which ones are currently up to date with the CASB policy.
So, who wants to sign up for who wants to take a stab at signing up for the first 5?
Are we reviewing all of them or only
Yep.
the ones that need to be?
I say you take I thought, let's just, even the ones you don't have to. So make sure you get at least 1 or 2 in there in your group that could potentially need to be visited.
Ms. Upchurch?
Yes, sir. Ma'am,
I can
sorry.
also- No, I can also refresh the board members' memory and make sure you have access to the CASB website where they do post the online policy that CASB has approved. And you can access CASB's policy and ours via board docs and make comparisons, or I can help you in any way you need assistance.
How many total policies are there?
26, so if we do 5 each, somebody gets an extra.
And Ms. Wood, I think you have linked all of the CASB policies here for them.
Yep,
So they're all available for
for
board
review.
to review.
Those are ours in column C.
Says CASB.
Column F.
Some column, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, did I?
I'll take the first 6.
You'll take the first 6? Okay, so,
I'll take the next 5.
okay,
Let's just go down the row.
Yeah.
okay. I'll take the last 5 then. Does that work? So on this list, so we have Chris, 1 through 6, Patty, 7 through 12,
Yeah.
Ron,
13 through 17 or 18.
18, and Todd, you are 19 through 24, and then I would be, did I do my math wrong?
Yeah, I think you overlapped each edge.
Yeah, I did.
A few extra rows of
I have an idea. Ms. Wood,
Yes,
Can you,
do you mind just color coding them
perfect,
and sending it out?
yep. Chris, Patty, Ron, Todd, Tiffany.
yep,
Yep.
Got it.
Yep.
6 for me, the overachiever.
all right.
We're gonna work them hard in this last few months.
April 1st is our next work session, right?
Yes, it is.
That's April Fool's Day.
Yes, it is.
And it's going to be fun.
Yes, it is. So we'll go over those on our work session for April 1st, and then if you want to ping a fellow board member and have a second set of eyes, but Vicky's very good at this too, so just,
And I actually have April 8th on my calendar.
April
as the
8th?
Next work
Okay.
So do I.
session.
Is that correct, April 8th?
What was the question?
How's
April
it
8th is
due
what we have on the
to Easter
calendar.
Monday?
Is it
Yes.
possible? you
Yep.
said-
it
It's
is.
got the Tuesday wrong.
I'm confused. What?
Our next work session,
Is this our intellectual challenge for the day?
our next work session is not April 1st, it's April 8th.
Okay.
However, if Mr. Norris chooses to come on April 1st, we should open the building for
My
him.
calendar's telling me April 8th also, so that's clearly user error.
Well, that's your April Fool's already.
He was trying.
That might
Overachiever
be
again.
a sign, Chris.
Okay. Oh, it's all fun and games. Okay. It's not. Okay, now for some work that we're going to do. Our next item is B1, number 4, District Services Survey Update, and that is going to,
It's me and Brett doing it together. I'm going to get us started, though.
perfect.
I'm sorry, I just
It's okay.
closed too far out.
While we're waiting for that to pull up, I can get started. So this was the first year that we did a district service survey. We have surveyed our employees, our students, even our caregivers in years past, but we have yet to survey ourselves as a district, allow our employees to give feedback on how our service has been, which is really a great opportunity. This is something that I, in my previous position in the district and in this position, heard was something that people really were excited to have us bring to the district. So Studer, the same company that we use for the parent caregiver and the staff survey, also had this survey, the district service survey. So we used that instrument, and I'm going to walk you through some of the key points that are important for you to know about. So the purpose of the survey is really to give us an opportunity to learn about how we're doing, how our service is to the people we are here to support, and to be able to learn and grow through their feedback so that we can continue to improve. When you think about service, you think about a number of different things. Obviously, taking care of people's needs, but also the attitude with which you have while taking care of people's needs, and the timeliness that goes into taking care of our people, and just making the overall experience feel positive enough that people will keep coming back and asking us questions and not kind of shut down and stop coming to us because they don't look forward to the experience of working with the district. There were 5 questions that were asked. And the way the service survey, the district service survey was set up is our employees could go in and select any department with which they had interaction with, and they chose what interaction meant. Maybe they had a lot of interaction, maybe they had a little interaction. Brett will show you a little bit more about how many people responded based on each department. But once they selected the departments that they were going to give feedback to, they were asked these same 5 questions each time. To be clear, they could ask, maybe they felt like, well, I interact with HR a lot, payroll, or finance, and transportation. They would respond with these same 5 questions for those 3 departments. So just to be clear, the questions are listed here, one around accessibility, one around accuracy, attitude, operations, and timeliness. You'll see those same questions on the left-hand side. On the right-hand side, something that stands out to me is service excellence is about both those hard and soft skills. Do we have the ability we need to actually take care of people? And again, like I said before, what is the experience like? What is the attitude of the person supporting the employee, the student, the parent, whoever it is that's reaching out to us? And also being clear about what those service standards are. One of the things I think about is when I first transitioned into this role, I talked a lot with specifically the HR team members I work closely with about the fact that I expected people to get back to our employees or anyone who reached out to them with a quick turnaround. And then we wanted if they didn't have the right answer, at least reach out, but the goal would be to give them the correct answer when we did reach out, which requires that we work closely with all the teams at Big Red here in the district to make sure that we are working together and that we give them correct information in a timely manner with a positive attitude. So based on the 247 employees that responded, our overall mean was 4.31. This is our, really, as Brett would say, it's kind of ground zero. This is our first time to take this survey, so we don't have anything with respect to ourselves to compare that mean to. And the overall top box score, which, to be clear, that is the percentage of employees who, when asked a question, responded with the highest possible rank. I'm going to go over with you the question that we got the highest top box score on and the question that we got the lowest top box score on. So if you look at these scores, the district mean is in the center there, and the service factor that we scored the highest on was attitude. And the question for attitude was it a nice experience? Did you receive service with a smile? Whereas the service factor that got the lowest score was operations. And the question asked for operations was, do the day-to-day operations run efficiently and effectively?
Quick question.
Yes.
Apologize if I missed this. Can you tell us a little bit about the cohort that responded to the survey?
Ron, I couldn't hear you.
He asked what cohort responded. We actually do not have that information. We are not able to ask further questions to clarify which department or if they're classified versus licensed or administrators. That is one thing that we hope to see change as we continue using service like instruments for surveying our people.
No, we actually have one layer down on the next slide.
Okay, and we do have one layer down on the next
I
slide.
knew that was coming. That's why I
Thanks
asked the
a
question.
lot,
Thank
Ron.
you.
Yes, thank you, Brett.
Sometimes you get lucky.
But we do actually, we have talked with the board and with each other about the fact that we would like to be able to dig a little deeper than we can using the current instrument.
I have a question.
Yes,
Can you go back to that slide?
sure.
So that's 4.3, that's 4 out of 5, right?
Correct.
So like Amazon ratings. Okay, making sure I understood.
It could be lower, that's for sure, but we'd like to see it go higher.
Absolutely. But I will still buy a product from Amazon that's 4.5 stars.
Woohoo.
Yeah, that's true. If the survey actually uses all 1 through 5. And one of the things that's really behind the scenes here where I kind of just hesitate on jumping too far with this is that Studer themselves, their normed national data set really only goes between 4 and 5. So scores 1 through 3 from their perspective generally aren't used. And so it's kind of an ineffective survey tool in my mind with the way it's designed. And so this gives us something to start with, but I think for us to move forward, we need to figure out a way to do better than that. So it can be well liken it to the Amazon score, because I don't think right now it can be.
Okay.
So it sounds like this is a beginning and requires significant refinement.
Yes, I believe so.
And I'll hand the clicker over to Brett. The one thing I will add that we are not going to dive into is there is a qualitative portion of the survey that actually does give us some feedback that if you really look at overall feedback can really be beneficial in moving our teams forward. So that's a positive.
Yeah, and I think in terms of these questions, the lowest score being on accuracy should be no surprise. It would be no surprise that payroll was a big part of that. You know, we've had payroll issues, as you all well know about, and we've made some good changes now. But there's a lot. This being year 0 again, there's years worth of opinion coming into this one score, and so. However we choose to move forward on this next year's score compared to this year's score will start to give us, I think, a good indication on how things are changing. So this is the inaccessible version of our data. That's for Amy Matizek. And so this is just taking all of the data that we had from that and breaking it down. So at the top, I wanted to focus exactly where Ron had asked his initial question in terms of the respondents. What do we know about them in terms of what was their role? And it's interesting here that that 7 people who took the survey said they don't have any interaction with any of those departments, so they weren't really a valid survey response. And so even though Alicia's numbers totaled 247, the numbers when I downloaded each of the individual departments totaled up 245. So I'm not sure what the 2 student delta is, or 2 staff member delta is with that. But you can see that the vast majority of our responses were in the certified or the teacher group there with 154, 63% of the total respondents were in that group. And then comparing that, walking that over to the eligible or the respondents, 426 for the teacher group means that 36%, a little over a third of the teacher group responded, versus the classified, the row above, that's more like a sixth of the eligible responded. Administrators, being a much lower number, had a higher percentage of response. So overall, that net total there that I'm showing is 238 respondents out of the 880 eligible, so a 27% response rate. And that's for any of those 13 departments. So, you know, we weren't, I wasn't doing a weighted average of that. If they responded to even one, yeah, it's the same as if they responded to all 13. Yes.
How challenging is it, not would it be, to move that participation ratio up to 66% to where it's really statistically significant in terms of a swath of what the employee base is thinking?
Well, this is, from what I've seen, it takes some time to kind of get in a routine so that staff know that it's there, know that it's reviewed and it has impact. And so that will provide kind of the way for us to grow it organically, to say, hey, yeah, it matters if you respond to this. And so that'll be up to us on how we move forward. And I think how we frame this in terms of our overall, you know, survey resources or opportunities. You know, Alicia was mentioning how we, you know, we have the staff experience survey, and we have the student survey and parent survey and stuff. So we kind of need to kind of put this all in a package to say, here's all the data we're trying to gather, and here is the target audience for that. And so I think so that people can know when is their opportunity to provide some feedback, and from which perspectives, you know, are we trying to reach and measure with each of these potential things. So I think providing some clarity in the future, especially in the staff experience survey versus this services survey, will give that staff audience greater clarity on, okay, here's what I'm doing this one, and what, you know, kind of what they're looking for, what we're measuring there versus in the staff experience versus what we're trying to achieve with the services survey. So that's not a great answer, I know, and it's long-winded, but this one is more nuanced than the staff experience one. I think the staff experience one is pretty just common sense. But what is this, and what are we trying to do with that? I think we probably need some more coaching and more explanation out there to the staff so they can understand it well to help us with that. Yes, Patty.
Question about, you said it was really between 4 and 5. So is that, are you saying like a 4.5 would be equivalent to a 3?
There was a slide that Studer provided us, and that, yes, kind of gave that impression.
Okay.
With the way that the
Because
survey
that's
is
very
working
different
from
than
them. Exactly.
how I saw this data. So 3 would be right in the middle. So 4.5 would be right in the middle. And it's not necessarily exactly where you'd want it to be. And so is that a better way of thinking through these numbers? That anything below 4.5 is probably less than average, and
According to Studer's national norms, that would be the correct answer, yes.
okay.
But again, I'm hesitant. That's why I'm hesitant to really, again, just, this is an initial zero starting point. Hey, we have something now. How do we move forward off of this, I think is what's really going to be most
All right,
important.
it just helps me think about these numbers and the differences between them,
Right.
which are really quite big.
There are, which is, yeah.
As opposed to if it's on a 1 to 5, the differences are not that big.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, the Studer national data would make you believe the range is like a 3.5 to 5, basically.
Okay.
You know, and which to me just points to kind of, well, that means the survey is kind of flawed. If it's not really working and you're not getting kind of a full representation of it, then just take off 1 and 2 if no one's ever selecting 1 or 2.
Right.
You know, so.
I just want to reiterate what I think it was Mr. Ridgway who mentioned it earlier, that this is the first time a survey like this has ever been administered. So all of the feelings of staff are reflected here for the past many, many years. And so we do need to take that under account as we then make improvement plans to address areas for improvement, opportunities for improvement to move forward, and we'll be communicating with our staff the strategies that are implemented to improve these scores, whether it's with this survey or a different survey in the future.
It's why I have that column on the far right that's called participation adjusted score. I basically take that 27% and say we only got 27% participation overall, and so it's just a mathematical thing, and it's not necessarily has any good theory behind it. It's just like, well, because we only had a quarter of our respondents actually participate, then how should we really value this, and how do we try and put it in perspective and in context?
Is the numerator for that column the average?
No, it's really just if you look at human resources, it's 4.47 times 0.27.
And that's how you get your participation adjustment?
Adjusted, yeah.
Okay.
Again, it's not, there's no real research statistical value. I was like,
Yeah.
let's just discount this effectively based on the participation rate.
This is a toe in the water,
Yeah.
and we need to figure out
It still
what
makes
kind
it
of
clear.
chemicals we want to put in the water to go forward.
It still makes it clear, where our strengths are and where our opportunities for improvement are, but I think it more appropriately compresses maybe the difference between the two. Saying, yes, we know that finance and payroll was the lowest and HR was the highest, but with only 27% participation, is it really a full percentage point difference, or is it really just a quarter?
Right, and is it statistically significant enough to take action?
Right.
And that's the bigger piece, right?
Right.
So,
And action versus that beyond what we've already taken, of course,
Right.
in that regard.
but understanding the pulse of the 880 people that come to work 5 days a week here for nearly 10 months a year is pretty important.
And I actually used this same idea when we were doing the employee experience survey in terms of participation adjustment to when I was talking to some of the operations departments, especially like transportation. Transportation had really low participation. They had great scores for the few people that participated. And I said, look, when we look at this data, because we have so little participation from you as a group, we kind of have to have some discount, some hesitation on really jumping on board with that until we have a higher level of participation. It gives us greater certainty. Hey, that result is really pervasive throughout that department. And so that was effective, kind of a way to demonstrate to them of why next year I'm really hoping for more participation out of transportation. Again, as an example, because we want to make sure that what we get in that regard is meaningful, so that we can make decisions off of true meaningful data.
If I missed it, I apologize. When was the survey administered?
Was it November? December?
Yeah, it closed right before the winter break.
Winter break, yeah.
Will next year's survey be the same time frame?
We haven't discussed that yet, but most likely comparable.
Yeah.
Is that what you're
I
shaking your
think,
head to?
Looking at our whole approach to surveys is something that we want to do and make sure that we're intentional in with the time in which each survey is administered next school year.
Yeah, and that's what I was talking about earlier, kind of getting this all as a program and saying, what are we doing when? Are we not, getting survey fatigue by hitting a group too often in too short of a time? I think we get that kind of planned out well, and because maybe this is the thing. Well, if we're doing the employee experience survey, when we look at this, say, well, if we're doing the employee experience survey in September, maybe we want to wait 6 months and get into the spring before we do something like this, or maybe not. But just a question I think we need to ask and be able to answer.
Okay. Any other thoughts or questions? Thank you for sharing this. And I actually look forward to seeing how numbers change from this year to next year.
Thank
Anything
you.
else that we need to know that we didn't cover? Okay, well then, thank you. All right, then let's move on to B number 5. Thank you for that presentation too.
You're welcome.
It's a good one. Homeschool Enrichment Academy and Transition Services Update. Ms. Andrews and Mr. Ridgway, you have the floor.
So you all were copied on the communication I sent out at the end of February, and I had a couple comments back from you, and really not too much feedback from anyone who was on the respondent list, but it went to all the stakeholders, so all the parents and staff of each of those programs received those emails, and so most of the communication that came back was, I would say not most, all the communication that I received back was, thank you for the update, appreciate how you're working on this, and so that was generally seems like well received. And what we have done since then is looked at one additional space for a rental scenario, and Melissa can tell you more about that, and then we're continuing to evaluate the options kind of on a day-to-day basis. So Melissa, what would you like to inform generally?
So, we have the two separate short-term and long-term perspectives. And so as we're looking at the short-term, there is a potential building that would need a ton of work. And so I'm pushing that more to the long-term category and adding prices to our options to figure out which is going to come out to be the best opportunity for us that fits the needs of the students the best. For our short-term opportunities for, our transitions program, one of the options I'm waiting for costs back from the contractor are to finish out the health sciences area in the CIC building. And then the other option for us with that program would be a church that has responded, that has some sufficient space, that has a kitchen availability that could help with that programming. So those are the best two options we have right now for short-term for the transitions program. The homeschool program could potentially also have space available in the church. We may have to get a little bit more creative with
Program design.
Yeah, program
basically.
design, really, to be more efficient in the space that's available. And then the other option, after talking to the fire department, is we could potentially use a portion of Grace Best for one additional year while we're getting the long-term solution in place, with the exception that we would have to get all of the storage out of the building immediately, and we would actually have to partition off permanently a portion of the building that would be considered not usable. And we're not talking just locking doors, we're talking about putting walls up so that those spaces are not accessible. And I'm working to get an appointment with him so he can identify those spaces for us and see what we have to work with. The benefit is that we do know that two-story addition for the 88 section where homeschool is currently upstairs, that is a usable space.
So as an approximate number only, it's about $250,000 a year to keep Grace Best open, not including incremental maintenance expenses that come up based on usage, which is very likely given the aging condition of the facility. So in the scenario where we might use a piece of it, what would be the net expense to the district?
It would be ongoing costs as we have already absorbed. There will be no additional cost, with the exception of building the walls, which is minimal because our maintenance department could do that.
So it would be some percentage of the $250,000.
I think it would be, most of that $250,000 still would really be spent for that.
Okay.
Yeah.
And would the gymnasium still be available?
Yes.
Because for HSE, that's a thing, right?
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
Again, that's based on the fire marshal's feedback and his observation. And so when we reconnect with them to really get clarity on, okay, where do those walls need to go? What type of walls do they need to be and everything like that, that would allow us to really formalize that plan.
Yeah. I guess the other, go ahead, please.
Would we need any updates for the following year for like HVAC?
So to keep them one more year, we would just continue to Band-Aid any issues that do arise, which we've been doing. We would not have to do anything per code to upgrade anything at this point in time, but we would have that timeline being pretty solid. We're not going to have the opportunity to expand past that.
And cafeteria?
Cafeteria, like I said, I'm not going to make promises. I do believe the fire chief would think the cafeteria is also okay.
would say, and again, the caveat is okay for a little bit longer. Right, he's not saying it's okay in general.
You're just stretching out the
Yes.
challenges.
Right.
Okay. Not to overuse the term, okay, sorry. What is your team's goal? By when do you want to have something defined, short-term and long-term?
I would like to have a decision for short-term as soon as possible because we have decisions for those families that need to be made. So I'm hoping as soon as I get the prices in and can talk to the programs about how to use the space, we could have a decision this month.
Yes, I'm hoping that we have a more informed conversation at next Monday's meeting with you at the regular meeting.
Okay. So end of the month would be the end of March. So is it reasonable and comfortable to have a commitment of April 15th?
Yes, I believe so.
Okay. That would be wonderful to put a stake in the ground for those families. With
Yeah.
with full respect for the fact that there's a lot of moving parts. But if we make a commitment and keep a commitment, it's wonderful for our credibility with them.
Yeah, I'd be disappointed if we had got to that point, if it took us all that time.
That's
So,
why I'm
yeah.
arguing we pad it by a couple weeks to give you
Right.
some cushion for unforeseen events.
Right.
But still make a commitment and keep a commitment and earn some credibility, some increased credibility with those families, such that when we move to the long term, they view it as these people know what they're doing, they've done this on time, on task, and so on and so forth. Right? Just like we would with somebody doing something in our personal lives.
Right.
Thank you.
What I found interesting in this exercise has been how the needs, the needs of each of those programs are different, honestly, than what I thought they were. And I'll give transition as a perfect example. When I first started on this board and we started looking at, and that was 7 years ago, when we started talking about transition needing a permanent space to call their own. And what that looked like and what that vision looked like, we had talked about, could we find a house to convert in our school district, similar to what you see like up in Jefferson County, for example. When we did the meeting here in this building, and we were all here, the needs are different than what that could provide. And so them coming to the table and us being at the table, and that is that transparency in the middle of, you know, like I said, the vision is inspiring, the middle is messy, and the end is a worthwhile journey. So in that middle, in in what we're in that transition phase with our transition group, that transparency in that coming to the table and learning, okay, actually this is not what they need. So I think that this has been so valuable, and I think it has become a blessing to be put on the table, because we may have gone a different direction and then say, wait a minute, you didn't ask us. And what we found with that same exercise with the Homeschool Enrichment Academy, twice in this room, and then when we were all at Big Red, what we heard from them was, this is what we need, this is what we want to make sure that you're leaning in. And it wasn't a, what are you doing, and oh, this is bad. It was a, okay, we're working together and we know that you've got our backs and that you're looking out for our best interest. And one is not, one event, the Grace Best discussion, is not, it's not in a vacuum. It's all happening at the same time. And I think once that was understood and realized that this isn't, we as a district are doing things. We're getting work done that's needed to get done. And that looks different for different programming and different buildings and different needs. And that their home is a brick and mortar space, so to speak, or a metal space, whatever. But at the end of the day, it is that community of those families that define those programs. So it's been actually, honestly, it's been inspiring.
And so I think the one thing I didn't answer was Ron's question on long-term. And so there are opportunities out there. Again, I mentioned the one building that's for sale that could be renovated and turned into a location for both programs. And there are some challenges with it that we need to put dollars to. So in order to just be effective, I'm making a matrix that also shows other options so we can figure out what we have budget for and what's going to fit them to the best of our abilities. And so another option is a steel building. And I've had good successes with those. However, this one year is the first time I've ever seen steel structure be more expensive than a brick and mortar building. And so I've gotten 3 quotes on those, and they have surprised me. And so I'm also looking at the opportunity for a pod, which is a large modular that has classrooms attached by hallway, everything enclosed with restrooms, but also has one large open space that could be multi-use cafeteria type thing. And with those, they are building them to a higher quality than they used to do. I'm told with the one company I've reached out to, it is a 50-year product, and we could do some things with it to make it feel more homey with some exterior improvements. So there's a few options out there. We're going to do a matrix, show the space availability and what our budget is, and see what we can do.
Thank you.
Does the potential tariffs, does that, and also the new legislation that we just talked about with some of the stricter codes, does that, if that goes into effect in 2026, can that potentially be a hiccup?
Absolutely. So one of the things, just so you know, you guys are aware, we did set aside a pocket of money for the CIC building in the event that tariffs do impact us, because I do not want to go over budget on anything. So we backed down a little bit on the build out of the whole project to hold that tariff money. So that will come back to us if they don't impact us. But the same thing we will be seeing, and especially steel and aluminum and potentially wood as well, because those come out of Canada and Mexico. And so with that being said, the question you had about the new legislation coming forward, we are always required to hit the International Building Code. So anytime we build new, it goes to the Regional Building Department. They will review those and make sure we are meeting those standards. So anything new moving forward will automatically be meeting the standards. Any renovations we do that go through permitting will also.
In the matrix, are existing assets included, and if not, can they be?
We can definitely put them in there.
Thank you.
Any other questions or discussion? My mind is just swimming with all, every time I lay my head on the pillow, I think when I wake up, oh, I want to reach out to Melissa and ask about this, or, oh, maybe I'll go visit Arby's and see if they're open and if there's a space. Or,
That building's for sale yet, yeah.
you know, maybe we'll go to Classic Homes and see if they'll build us something since they're growing so fast. Ideas pop in my head, and so I'm also, if there's ideas or opportunity that community members or us as a board or our staff, that they feel free to reach out to you and say, have you looked at or have you thought about? I know you've got a lot on your plate, but at the same time, I think if there's opportunity for community collaboration where we're all doing this together as Tri-Lakes community for our kids, I think that's a win.
I appreciate that, and I'm absolutely open to that. We have had both the Town of Monument and the Fire Department poke at us a little bit with some options as well. So we do already have some community input, and we're open to anything else we can receive.
And I want to just say for the record that I've been very thankful. The Town of Monument has just really come to the table in support of what can we do and what do we need to do to partner together for the sake of all of us together. So that's been again, I keep using the word inspiring, but that's a positive as well. Am I missing anything?
No, I'll just shout out the HSEA and transition services communities for their patience and their grace and their participation in the conversation. They've certainly been very helpful in providing ideas and also understanding with our timeline as well.
Also, if you want to play Uno with the kids in transitions, it's a lot of fun. Okay. Well, if there's nothing else to put on the table right now, then thank you, and we look forward to seeing what else comes forward. And again, I know that this has just been, like, you got a full plate and maybe 2 or 3, and you're balancing one on top of your head, but thank you.
You're welcome.
Same. It's a big deal, and we notice. There's a lot going on, and it's all things that have to go on and be done well, and it's really gratifying to see these things coming to fruition. So a big thank you.
And I have been hearing positive in the community when I'm out at Safeway or at church. Folks are coming up and saying, thank you for taking action and making things happen and not just kicking the can. So.
Great.
It's good to have a team of professionals, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yep. Okay. I think we have covered all of our work session items, and we finished at 10:32. I wanted to finish at 10:30, so look at us. We're all and again, when you're reviewing those B policies, feel free to reach out to Vicki. I'm excited that we're doing this work. Again, it gives us an opportunity to really lean into what goes into policy work, and we take ownership for it, and it really is our governance of who we are as a board. So I'm excited, really excited about this work. We did this with CASB as a board of directors, and I came away from it going, we can do this in our school district. We should do this. So thank you guys for leaning into that. I appreciate that a lot. Okay, and Vicki, real quick question for you. On the election timeline, when can that become available for anybody to jump on and see?
Anybody wanted to, they could certainly see what's out there for the Secretary of State and things. However, I don't think I would post anything until we maybe go for the call for nominations and such thing.
Okay.
That means I can bring up that.
I was just thinking about that because when we do our May 1st presentation, being able to have that to share out. Obviously, we have that, but the timeline, that's still draft form.
We could probably share it this way,
Okay.
as far as like the list of dates.
Yes, the dates. Yep. Okay. Well, then I think let's call this a wrap for the day, and our work session is adjourned, and we'll have lunch and then jump into our retreat. And that will be upstairs.
Lunch won't be